And very simple, I think the objective is totally missed here, you know. The beauty of human beings is their uniqueness. Every human being is unique in terms of his skills, faculties, experiences, emotional or intellectual experience or capabilities. And what schools do is commoditization. They put into this, they amass all of these poor kids and put them in this commoditization factory. It's just like cosmetic surgery today. You know, most of the ladies in one country, they look alike, all of them, because they go to the same doctor and does the, so they are doing to children what cosmetic surgeons are doing to many of the ladies today. They make them at the end look alike, and beauty is in the uniqueness of a human being. The problem, structure is the enemy, the greatest enemy of innovation. The more structured your organization or your methodology, the less innovative you are, the more you are a commodity, another car or a product or gadget on the assembly line. Definitely, there must be a revolution in terms of turning upside down the whole educational system, where we can enhance and boost uniqueness of human beings, and that what makes the world much more productive, much more joyful, and much more in a much better status than it is today.
Thank you, Saad. Well, I know you would like to weigh in on this issue.
Thank you for the opportunity to chime in on this, and I have a slightly different perspective. I believe that teachers and the education system is or are our angels. They're the ones who are in control of our future because they bring up the next leaders. And we have a huge responsibility, a social responsibility, to nurture those who nurture the students. I'm very passionate about this topic. I'm a university ambassador. I was at Virginia Tech a few months ago, North Carolina A&T last week, San Jose State University. We collaborate with universities. Like I mentioned earlier, we created the analytics major, a bachelor's degree. We have an academic initiative. We have university ambassador program. Academic initiative, we are collaborating with professors across the globe, feeding them curriculum that we recommend to teach their students, and it's a win-win situation. We benefit that they graduate students who are familiar with our technology. They graduate students who are employable. The previous person who asked the question, Mr. Saad, he is the owner of EduGates, and there's a partnership now to, he did, as he introduced himself, a school management company. He's going to help us with the cooperation of the academic initiatives at IBM to insert some of the mainframe curriculum, starting with high schools into colleges. So it's a win-win situation that the students would benefit from such guidance.
Thank you, Ralph. I'd like to take the next question now. There was a gentleman behind the one who just asked a question. Thank you.
Alexis of Biller IT Services and volunteer mentor to startups here in the Emirates. Also 10 years with IBM, I should perhaps give as a disclaimer. Another education question, if I may. This is a BCS event. I'd love to know, perhaps starting from Phil, how you appraise in a constrained budget environment the education needs of your staff, as well as the benefits of accreditation. Obviously, that's where I link it to the BCS. And perhaps, Dr. Said, you could offer a Burkini answer afterwards. So the question is about accreditation, how you maybe protect budgets so that your staff feel empowered on a continuous education.
Okay, we'll start with Phil. I just want to make sure, you know, we're getting bikinis, cosmetic surgery. I don't know what's next, but I'm getting a little nervous here. Okay.
Just to keep people awake after that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll go for the full swimsuit answer if that helps you. So I think it's a real dilemma. You know, most big corporates, when they are faced with budget cuts and really austere times, soft budgets like training are the first to go. primarily because, and the way it's sold, I guess, is that people say, look, it's the training budget or it's headcount. What do you want to do? And of course, most of us, will go for training budget, not headcount, because that's a much easier conversation. People's lives are not affected, and so on and so on and so forth. But it's interesting in my experience, it actually is evidence. It's very hard to make a pitch to your CFO for keeping an educational budget if you've got no evidence. And if you need it, anybody here, by all means, talk to people like me afterwards, and I'll give you the place sources for this. But I can demonstrate, if we take HMRC being my classic case recently, where I am now probably the biggest provider of membership services to the BCS, we actually made every member of the technology team a member of the BCS. Now let me just paint you a picture here. These are old-fashioned British civil servants. The idea of wasting money is a complete anathema to them. And we had a real reaction. People were saying, how much does this cost? Couldn't we spend the money on? And a whole long list of stuff came out. Although interesting enough, 6 months later, after it all died down, I noticed when I was getting internal emails, their name and their business title had MI, member of the BCS, in their sort of email legends. I thought that was quite an interesting sort of mental move. Well, after 2 years, we said to them, we're going to pay for it, but it's not mandatory. You can rejoin it if you wish to do so. And over 95% still elected to become a member because they recognize the benefit. Once they got over this idea that internal education is the only answer. Turning to general education, of course, you have to put your money where your mouth is. Certainly in previous organizations where I've come from, training budgets have been cut out. I've had to find the money myself by cutting something else out. And I can tell you now, for educational purposes, for, I guess, engagements, for sickness dropping, and for general professionalization, every pound spent has increased productivity by more than 40%. Even making people take formal educational exams at the end to gain an externally recognized qualification has revolutionized the business. Remember, I'm the guy they employ to cut costs. I'm the guy they employ to cut millions and millions, if not billions, off their cost base. And yet that small thing increases productivity so high, it actually increases the ability for a business to perform. So I've never seen that penny as wasted.
Thank you. Dr. Saad.
I think, again, the perspective, what is the perspective? And I believe in total redefinition of the IT department role in general, to be a facilitator and enabler on information and not a factory or an assembly line that assembles and produces systems to support the organization. These are two different perspectives altogether. I believe in outsourcing every technology to a technology provider, and therefore the education priorities change dramatically. They should spend much more time learning the business, not learning technology, and much of this technology is not even relevant to their, I mean, I've seen IT shops send a lot of people to know Java programming, and while there is no, they will never write a Java code, for example, themselves. So changing the perspective, redefining the role, spending more time to learn the business itself. I think there are two things to learn if you are in any business. It is leadership and the business. Everything else is immaterial.
Thank you, Saad. Well, I think Paul is getting a little lonely over here. We gave him the biggest box because we were going to give him the most questions, and I have failed at doing that. We have time for just maybe 2 more questions, and I'd like to see if Paul would take one of those. Gentleman here, please.
I'm in the education field in the higher education. We train IT graduates, and one of our biggest concerns is to get them to realize how can they project the value of what they do to the organization. As you said, Phil, IT for a lot of people is a black box. And one of our biggest challenges at the moment is how could you promote the value of what you're doing in terms of service, in terms of adding value. Another thing is we are trying to preach that the era of competitive advantage is disappearing toward collaborative advantage. Not always you have to compete. Sometimes collaborating with your competitor on certain area could give you an advantage that you never thought about. So as a CIO, obviously, there is an issue of selling IT, raising awareness internally more than what you're doing externally. The panel has done a great job in talking about external value. How do you do it internally with your own people? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, do you want me to have a go? I was quiet because I had quite a lot of airtime both this morning and earlier. So let me chime in on this one with a couple of examples. One positive and one arguably more negative. So let me start with a slightly more negative one. What I used to do when I looked after as CIO of BT, I asked my people to have business cases on the ready when we had if we ever had really big disasters, really bad problems, which we perhaps couldn't have prevented. Because quickly after we had a very serious outage, if we ever had one, we did have one or two, not many, but we'd have one or two. There was an amazing, you could spend months and months and months, in my experience, trying to explain the value of having this uptime. But again, without being, a well-balanced engineer, chips on both shoulders, it's very difficult to, as you say, present that value because like the socket on the wall, I expect to plug something in and the light to come on. And, I really don't value it because I just expect it there. Only perhaps value it if there was a blackout here and we couldn't talk to one another. So be prepared for, opportunities like that, slightly more negative one. A more positive story is certainly created a whole idea where, again, I think the best person you can collaborate with, you can collaborate with your competition, and that's fine, and clearly you have all these various models, or rather, collaborate with various partners, but collaborate a lot with your customers. There was a time when, and in fact this is where I came and worked with Phil first, go to talk to Phil and try to understand how we could be more as a service provider, as a more than somebody that just dug up your road and pulled wires in. How could we provide more services to help Phil in his job at Transport for London? How could he help him with congestion on signalling, whatever it might be? Really understanding Phil's problem as a customer and, of course, Procter & Gamble's problems and GlaxoSmithKline's problem and HSBC's problem and all that kind of stuff to get on that side. What happened as a result of that was a couple of things. One, we started to get really good customer dialogue going, and our account managers actually came to us. In fact, I was described as CIO as the best salesperson without a sales target. Not because I was going in and selling necessarily BT overtly and selling against a product, but because we had a better conversation with our key customers. We could actually get through the door and have a conversation with our customers' CIOs. Before, when the account manager turned up, they thought, oh, it's BT. You know what they want? They want to sell us some more MPLS or some more data or some more connectivity. Now I can have a rich discussion with my customer. Guess what I can do then? One, I can build a better relationship, which might turn into a better commercial relationship for my shareholders. But I get great insights into the market. I get understanding of where the market. So when I'm spending my $50 million of development money around the world, I can do stuff that I know people like Phil needed and people like Procter & Gamble needed, people like Etisalat and other companies do and so on needed. Because I was talking to people at the right boardroom level. So it's creating that relationships and creating that. That all of a sudden made me and my team a lot more valuable to the organization because we ended up creating a sales pipeline of about 2.5 billion on the back of innovative globally on innovations and our innovative approach to the way we work with people.
Can I just add to that, just a one line to pick up your first part? Any of you involved in education establishments, particularly universities, you really should find old CIOs like me who've been in the business for a long, long time and get them to come and talk to your students like I do in the UK about what it's really like to lead technology. Leave aside all the languages, all the knowledge, all the learning they're having, and just tell you what it's like a real day in the life of a CIO. If you find people like that, and I'll give you warts and all, that is the perspective that many students need to make then a reasoned judgment about their career, about what they do next. Sometimes it puts many off, many others it encourages. But try and find long-term, old-fashioned, old CIOs like me, and you'll be fine in terms of education.
Thank you. I think the correct term is long-time CIO.
Wow.
Old CIOs. I'm
Very
not
old
sure about
CIO.
that. After I did tell the audience at the beginning that we were all in our 30s, we need to keep that. Okay, we've got time for one more question. And before we ask the question, I would just like to check with the conference chairman. We have a number of questions that we won't have time for today from the audience. Would it be acceptable if we asked anyone who is interested to submit their questions and we could ask the panel to follow up later? Okay, sorry guys, put you on the spot.
No problem, delighted.
Okay, last question please. There was a gentleman here.
Okay. Just, I suppose the real question in terms of, I totally agree with you in terms of, I think the CIO is here to stay. I think the youth of today embraces technology because they don't care about the bits in the middle. I think our challenge is, and I'd like your views on it, on the innovation aspects, because I don't believe innovation is on the technology. Innovation is probably more inclined to how do I get people to believe in the bits in the middle. Here regionally, there's some serious constraints. They hear the word cloud, but they don't really know what it is or what it does, or what they need that cloud to do for them. Is there any advice you can give in terms of how we can, from a CIO's perspective, change the perception of what the empty part of the middle? Because everybody regionally, they go and buy the shiny things. The average 5-year-old knows how it works. They willingly put all personal data into any Facebook, any element, and they'll throw that into the cloud without even thinking about it. But when it comes to business, there's an unwillingness to embrace that. How do you believe that a CIO could try and, I suppose, bridge that gap from a knowledge, awareness, and as part of the overall package?
Well, can I ask you to respond to that?
Certainly, that's a really good question.
Could you do it in 2 minutes, please?
Sure, I'll give it a try.
No
This is a very good question, and I love analogies and stories. I don't know if you've ever watched TV where a crew comes into a house and revamp the house and remodel very quickly. And if you notice, they never show the plumber putting the pipes in the back of the wall. They never show the electrician putting the wires. They always show the painter painting the nice colors, right? And that's the same thing. It's a problem, it's a challenge that we need to put light on, that the bread and butter of IT is really not only on the glass, the nice Dojo or JavaScript or whatever that renders into a browser, but also the middleware. And once you admit that, you could resolve that problem by sharing that knowledge and sharing the vast amount of innovation opportunities that lies into the plumbing work of IT.
Thank you, Afton. Good job. Well, we want to end on time in respect to the presentations that will be following with the technical papers. I know we got started slightly late, so apologies for that. I want to give a sincere thank you to our audience participants. I'm sorry that we weren't able to get to all your questions, but please do submit them to us. We will be publishing a summary report of this panel, and we would make an attempt to answer your questions as well, if you are interested in that. Just a few words in closing. I found it very interesting today that we started out the morning talking about people as the secret weapon in IT. And today, throughout this panel discussion, we've not talked about technology at all. We've talked about people, customers, young people and education in IT, but no technology. And I think there's a very strong message there that we are seeing a recurring theme, that it really isn't so much about the technology. There is innovation in that, but the real innovation is about people. And perhaps in future conferences, we may want to focus on that as part of a discussion, because it's been a very popular one today. So again, thank you to the audience, and a very special thank you to our panelists. Please join me in a warm thank you to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this enlightening debate. After 30 minutes break, we will proceed with the invaluable technical papers presentation. We have 3 parallel sessions running today. The topics and their locations are listed on the screens and outside boards. You may also seek our assistant help in guiding you to the correct place.